It's July 26th, 2007, and Newbie today wants to trade the E-mini Dow Futures Index. He has his chart up here for the YM, a 2-minute chart. And he's learned that trading at the VWAP, while a good entry point, there are other places he could trade as well. He now has on his chart not only the peak volume price for the market volume distribution function at 13,699 and the VWAP, which is right now at 13,669, and the first standard deviation, which is at 13,621, but he now has the second standard deviation on his chart at 13,574. And he's figured out that if the market is skewed to the downside, he can not only take trades at the VWAP, but why not take trades at the first standard deviation as well? So that's what he's going to do. He's going to look for an entry here at 13,622. Let's say one tick below 13,629. And there it is. Looks like he may get an entry here. 13,620. Not quite yet. We're at 13,618, 13,619. Market moving up to that first standard deviation. He's no longer going to wait till the market gets back to the VWAP. He's going to trade right here at the first standard deviation, if he can get an entry. Market here is now 13,619 high, going up. Now 13,619 still. We need to get to about 13,621 to guarantee that Newbie gets a short trade at 13,620. Market's going up. There it is, 13,621. Okay, Newbie is in the market. At 13,621, he immediately places a stop loss at 13,700, one tick above the peak volume price. So Newbie has a short trade at the first standard deviation. This is a new thing for him, an epiphany for Newbie. But he also realizes by taking trades at the first standard deviation rather than the VWAP, he's got a huge stop loss in place. Does this frighten him? Not in the least. Newbie has to learn that when he trades, he has to have a risk tolerance. How much is he willing to lose on any one trade? For him, this is a new thing. He would normally have placed a stop loss, say, at this point right here, right at that high point, 13,648. But that's not really what the statistics here is telling him about. He knows the VWAP's up here, and he knows he normally would take a trade at the VWAP. So he's got to stay in this trade for at least until the peak volume price. That's a long ways off, but that's the nature of this game. Newbie's going to have to reevaluate his thinking about stop losses and about what a loss really means to him in terms of his capital. How much of his capital is he willing to risk on any one trade? That's really the nature of the game, not where do you place a stop loss for any particular trade. So he's in this trade at 13,620, and he's going to stay in this trade until either he's stopped out at 13,701 up here, or he has a profit equal to one standard deviation, which is down here. And down here is 13,572. Now he also realizes that these standard deviations keep moving, and he's not going to be greedy about this. he will set his profit target at 13,572. Even though the standard deviation may be moving to a new point later on in the day, 13,572 will be his outside. In fact, let's make it one tick above that, 13,573. So there's his profit target. His stop loss is, as before, up here at 13,701. So there's the stop loss. And so newbie sits back and he's going to watch this, and he's going to see where this market takes him. And the interesting question arises is, what happens if the market does get back up to the VWAP? What should newbie do? Well, I'm going to leave that as a question. For those of you who are watching this video, you should be able to answer that question, what newbie will do at this point. There is only one answer, and you should know what that answer is. Newbie's also watching the volume distribution function. He notices that there's a huge hump here in the distribution and a possible new peak starting to develop at around 13,615. But that's not of concern to him at the moment. Until this peak moves out to where the peak volume price would be, which would be about this point, there's no possibility for the peak volume price suddenly moving down to 13,615. But he'll watch it and make sure that doesn't happen. If it does happen, he knows what he has to do. He has to exit immediately from the trade if that happens, because then the skew of the market has now switched, and he only wants to be trading in the direction of the skew. Remember that the volume-weighted average price being below the peak volume price means that the skew of the market is to the downside. This is the high volume area, or high probability area for trading. From the peak volume price up to the high is the low volume area, or the low probability for trading. Newbie doesn't know anything about trading up in this region, at least not yet. He will learn eventually how to trade up in this region, but at this point he's only happy to take trades in the high volume, high probability region of the market. Why there? Because that's where most of the trading is taking place. And newbie wants to be trading where most of the trading has been taking place. So he's in this trade at 13,620. Market's moved up to 13,642. That's 22 points at $5 a point. That's 110 bucks he's lost so far. He realizes this is a high-risk trade in the sense that there's the possibility for a large loss in this kind of trade because of the large standard deviation, but he knows that, and that's the point. He knows what he's dealing with, and he feels that his capital that he has is worth the risk, because if this trade pans out for him, the market goes down to 13,573. He will have pulled in, let's see, 27, 47 ticks on this market, on this trade, which would be at $5 a point. How much is that? 47 times 5. That's 35, 20, $235 on this trade. That would be a very nice trade for newbie. So he's sticking around, and he's going to watch the market carefully here. His only concern is whether the market stalls somewhere around here, and a lot of volume comes in, moving that peak volume price down to that point. Other than that, he doesn't have to do anything else but sit and watch and see how this thing pans out. Remember, he is now taking trades away from the VWAP. at the first standard deviation, and he stays in the trade for one standard deviation, which is down at the second standard deviation at 13,573. That's the volatility of this market today. Fairly large. At the moment, 47 ticks. Trading 47 ticks is very nice. You can pull a lot of money out of the market, especially if you can do that several times a day. Doesn't always happen that way, and unusual for it to happen during the summer. But here it is happening, and Newbie wants to take advantage of this. So he's in the trade. Market is now moving in his direction. We're down to 13,616. Moving down. Newbie will keep a close eye on this thing. Make sure nothing unusual happens to the volume distribution function while this market is moving down. And he's going to try and pull out 47 ticks out of this market. That would be an excellent trade for Newbie. Newbie can do this all day long, in fact. Anytime the market retraces back to the first standard deviation, he just pulls the trigger and waits for the market to either stop him out at the peak volume price or give him a profit at the next standard deviation. Standard deviation number 2 down here. Notice, by the way, how the volume distribution function keeps updating on every bar. We are now at this point in the volume distribution, and the peak volume price is at this point in the volume up here. So that's got a ways to go to knock that peak volume price down. Doesn't look like that's going to happen. Price is dropping still. 13,605, 13,606. Newbie stays in this trade. He's only trading one contract, so he's got to stick it out. He's learned a lot in these last couple of weeks about market statistics, and he feels fairly confident in taking trades now, either at the VWAP and now, today, at the first standard deviation. Market will hit the first standard deviation more times than it's going to touch the VWAP. So why not trade there? The VWAP, the first standard deviation, the second standard deviation are what I call HUP, hold-up prices. Places where the market pauses, slows down, before it either continues off in the same direction or reverses. And which one it will do depends on what the volume distribution function looks like at the time. Today, of course, the volume distribution is skewed to the downside, so the expectation is that when the market hit the HUP at the first SD here, it's going to reverse and move back down to the second standard deviation. Why does Newbie expect that to happen? Because the market is skewed that way. He knows that from the VWAP and the peak volume price and the relationship between them. He can see that the market's skewed that way. Even just looking at the volume distribution function itself over here, that it's skewed that way. This is where all the trading's taking place, not up here. So here we are, market's doing a little retrace at 13,598. It's doing a little retrace, and in later threads we will discuss things associated with why markets do little retraces and bouncing around and stalling outs and whatever before either continuing down or reversing entirely. There's more to learn about this volume distribution function, but we'll get to that in later threads. We'll see what's going on here. We'll also learn that newbie could be taking trades even between these two distributions, two standard deviations. And we'll discover what those points are and what he should do about them. We might even discover that newbie shouldn't have taken a trade at this standard deviation. Maybe he could have waited till it reached here or retraced back down to the first standard deviation. But at the moment, that's not really critical. What is critical is he understands he can get into a trade at this first standard deviation and hang in there until the market shows its volatility, which it has been showing all day, that it should move down to the second standard deviation. And notice, by the way, that the second standard deviation has moved down to 13,570, but newbie is not moving his target. He's going to keep his target at what the standard deviation was at his entry point, which is 13,572, 13,573. Newbie plays this conservatively, all right? He's not going to be that greedy about this. He's just going to play it conservatively and take the profit that the market says he should be able to get when he entered the trade. So notice that the market has moved back to 13,618, which is now the present value of the first standard deviation. Bumps off there, and incidentally, if he hadn't taken his trade at that point, he could have entered here at 13,617, 13,618. You notice how the market bounces off the hold-up price, and then starts moving down again. Markets do this all day long. They touch HUPs, bounce off them, stall, either keep moving up or reverse. It's the nature of these markets, and it's the nature of the statistics of markets. So newbie's still in the trade. Market has now moved down to 13,596, 13,594. Things are looking good here. Market keeps dropping. Exactly what newbie expected it to do, and he wasn't too concerned that the market moved above the HUP point here as high as 13,642. He felt fairly confident based on the skew that the market would continue to move down to the next standard deviation. The other question you can ask, of course, is could newbie take trades below the second standard deviation? The answer to that question is definitely yes. We could put a third standard deviation down here somewhere, and when the market retraced back to the second standard deviation, he could have entered the trade and hoped that the market would move down to the third standard deviation. However, you must keep in mind that every entry point further away from the volume-weighted added price adds risk to the trade. And if you're willing to tolerate that risk, if you have a risk tolerance which allows you to take trades at the lower standard deviations, by all means do so. There's money to be taken off the table, even at those points, once you know how to do it. And we will discuss this a little further in some future threads about risk tolerance and about what newbie can do to keep his trades profitable. After this trade, newbie will no longer be a newbie. He'll be a trader. And we won't call him newbie anymore. We will call him trader. So we're waiting here for the market to touch 13,573. It almost did it. Not quite. 13,575. Newbie got a little anxious. He could have taken the trade off the table at 13,575. But we're going to stay in there. We're going to stay in there till we touch 13,573. In actuality, we want to get one tick below it. We should get at least 13,572. Let's face it. The standard deviation, the second standard deviation has dropped now to 13,567. No reason why we shouldn't hit 13,573 or below. Volatility of the market says it should. So here we are, 13,580, 79. Bouncing around. Markets bounce around a lot. You still hang in there? Most traders would have taken their profit target right here at this low at 13,584. Would have been okay if that's the way you want to play the game. But why not use the market statistics in your favor here? Market statistics says the market ought to go lower. 13,572 is well above the present second standard deviation at 13,567, so we should hit 13,573. Market's still bouncing around up there, and we will understand a little later on why it does all this. Clearly, there are up points, hold-up price points, somewhere in here. What are they? How do we find out what they are? We will find out what they are. But that will be for future threads. For now, all we have is the market statistics for today, shown on the chart. And that's what we're trading. That's what we know about. Newbie may be getting a little frightened here that the market somehow has turned around, not touched his target price. He shouldn't get frightened. Skew is still in his favor. Market direction is still down. Nothing's changed. Peak volume price is still up here at 13,699. This peak out here at 13,615 hasn't developed completely into a new peak. So there's no reason why Newbie shouldn't stay in this trade until his profit target has been hit. And he will do so. Market's coming down again, 13,585. Still waiting. 13,587. And market should move down. Should hit that second standard deviation down here. Now at 13,566. And we'll just sit and watch and see what happens. Market would have to move all the way up to 13,701 for Newbie to lose this trade. If he didn't want to lose anything at all, of course, he could move his stop loss down to his entry point at 13,620. That point now is above the first standard deviation. And his expectation is that if the market touched 13,614, it ought to reverse again. So if he really wants to play it safe, he could, of course, move his stop loss now to his entry target. Take the emotion out of the trade. Not a bad idea. This first standard deviation has moved down sufficiently so that Newbie should not get stopped out of this trade, even if he moves his stop loss down to its entry point. Market seems to have reversed a little here, heading back up again. Markets do this all the time. They go down, they reverse, they go back up, and they move down. This is called market rotation. And when you understand market rotation, it occurs all day long. It's been occurring for thousands of years. And markets have been trading. They rotate. They just don't move in one direction all the time. Takes a little getting used to. It's a little unnerving to see markets rotate, but in fact it's the rotation of the market that allows you to make a profit in it. Volatility is the name of the game. And when you understand volatility, you understand how to make money. From the market distribution, volume distribution function, you know what the market volatility is all about. It's the standard deviation. And today the standard deviation is quite large. And so there's that amount of money to be made on every trade that you take on a day like this. On days when the standard deviation is small, you might not want to trade at all. But these days we have large standard deviations, and so you have to take larger risk for larger profit. So we're still waiting for that 13,573 to be touched. Hasn't been touched yet. Newbie's still in this trade. Peak is still up here at 13,699. It has not moved down to 13,615. So newbie is still in the trade, will stay in this trade. If any of these peaks here, here, or here suddenly evolve into very large volume peaks, such they become the peak volume price, newbie will exit the trade immediately and take whatever profit that he has. But that doesn't appear to be happening. Volume is not developing in this region to any great extent, any further. And so we still expect that downward move down to the second standard deviation, which is now at 13,564. Newbie's profit target is still at 13,573. He will not move that. He will keep it at 13,573. And so we're still in this trade. 13,588. He wants to pull out that 47 tick trade. It's a nice profit, $235. Why not? If he doesn't take it, someone else will. Again, the market is still bouncing around. There clearly is something going on in this region newbie doesn't know anything about yet. At some point he will learn about what's going on in this region. For now, this is what he has. Market moving down again, 13,584. Still hanging in there. Got to get below these two low points that were touched twice, 13,576. As soon as that market breaks below that, his profit target should be touched. And in fact, it should move even below that, all the way down to 13,564. And here we go, 13,575, 13,576. 4, 3. How about 2? Come on, market. Do your thing. Hit me. 2. There we go. Newbie's made himself 47 ticks on the YM today. Great trading, Newbie, and great patience hanging in there. Even when the market reversed, you still hung in there. And you hung in there for that profit target that you wanted, and you got it. And you see that the market still is moving lower. It will probably move down to right down to the second standard deviation. But at this point, you're out of the trade, and you're licking your chops. Newbie is no longer a newbie. He's now a trader. And we will call him Trader from now on. Hope this video helps you to understand market statistics. Have a good one.